Hi, I'm Alex Kaluzhsky, filmmaker, and I'm here with Andrei Konchalovsky, the director of this film, Sin. Hello, welcome, Andrei. How are you?
Hello, good evening.
I think it's interesting to start with the title, right? So in English, it's translated as sin, but in the original Italian, it's il peccato, right? Which is the sin, correct?
Yeah.
So is there, I mean, like, you know, what could you say about the title and the thinking that went into that? Because there is a distinction between sin, sort of general, and the sin, which is the Italian title.
I don't know. I don't speak Italian
Ah,
so good to see the difference, because in Russian it's sin.
uh-huh.
But of course we shouldn't go into the kind of linguistic differences, because itself the title, this sin or sin, it's still connected somehow to the certain knowledge, certain metaphor for a human feeling. Yeah, sin exists only when someone gives this adjective. Otherwise, it doesn't exist.
Interesting. I'm curious to hear about the sort of the trajectory, the history of the film, because I think I saw something that I think it premiered in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it seems like it had this sort of trajectory of almost, a while, obviously, everything that happened in the last year.
You're talking about trajectory of an idea.
Sure, yeah, everything, the trajectory of the idea, and then how it came to, finally be released at the Film Forum in New York.
It's first of all, it's very long. All my ideas, they never kind of grow and become fruitful and realize itself soon. It's usually very few of my films were done like I decided to do it, I wrote a script, I did it, it took 1 year. Usually not less than 1 year. Usually the idea is coming and going, come and go, come and go. Then some kind of kernel comes gives the roots, and we have certain desire to do it. It's never very rational. You hear kind of music. You can see the film in 5 seconds, the whole film. Usually it happens, I see the full film, the real smell of the film in very short 5-7 seconds, and then you have to translate it, then you have to decipher it, then you have to put certain effort to understand what did you mean seeing this film. And especially with Michelangelo, the idea came because I read his poetry, and in the poetry he wrote about the shame and the terrible events around you. And I thought, what did he mean by saying shame? And I started to study his life, and also the period itself, extremely rich period, culturally, not only culturally, politically, philosophically, everything. So in that sense, it took maybe 5, 6, 7 years while reading the books and learning, reading poetry, letters, the whole letters between Michelangelo and his parents, his father, his relatives, his family. So I cannot say that I cannot say that desire to shoot the film was enough. You had to learn a lot. The second thing, it's very important to understand that I'm not trying to tell the story straightforward, like the story, for example, the story of the sculpture. It's not, basically, he barely touched marble in the film. And it's conscious, but that is a conscious desire of a scriptwriter to look around, because, you know, everyone knows the film with Michelangelo with Charlton Heston, where he's really working as a, and I don't think it's only one way to talk about an artist.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's interesting because there was you don't see him creating a lot, but you see him doing a lot of you see a lot of soldi, you see him paying a lot, you see him organizing a lot, you see him almost, you know, doing all of the stuff other than the actual creating of the work, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you see him doing whatever he can do and whatever he does, except doing what basically was he famous for.
Yeah.
And that's a conscious desire, because I think you can speak, you can talk, you can describe an artist, not necessarily showing his paintings or sculptures or listening to his music, how he writes the music, composer. You can speak about an artist as a person with a period, person in time, person in history, person and other people, artist and power, a person and money, etc. So these all aspects of his life, if you really thoroughly looks at it, basically creates a very explicit portrait of a person. And then when you go to the museum and watch and just look and study his creations, but you understand them better if you've seen other things about his life. That's interesting, you know. It's in that sense, I would like audience to know the character better, the character, not a sculpture, not an artist, but just a human being better. And knowing the human being helps you to understand his creations.
You think it's you know, well, there's the other side of that where people think, you know, you have like the Japanese artists where they would go to a particular province, they would become very well known and very famous for a particular work that they're doing. And at the height of their fame, they would disappear, go to another province, start completely from scratch, because they felt like the fact that people knew them, knew their history, actually interfered with their understanding of the work. So it's interesting to hear you say that. How do you feel about that?
Certain denial. Yeah, I think, you know, it's all in the script, first of all, because I write my scripts I write the scripts for my film myself because I wrote this script with Elena Kuchileva, my partner, a long-time partner. The film, whatever script is, you cannot avoid the point of view that is given in the script. Therefore, Fellini or Bergman or Kurosawa or Buñuel, my favorite directors, they usually write their own script because it's a certain level of thinking about the subject. At the same time, in the script, there already a vision. It's a author's vision. And I can compare writing the script with driving the car to the center of the unknown city. You know, when you have a GPS in the car, you put the GPS until the left, right, you have arrived. And it's the shortest way to get to the center. I don't think this is only one way to study, to explore certain subject and to write a script, because you first of all, you shouldn't have a GPS. You should feel that there is certain center and you go circles, circles, circles. And once you made 3, 4, 5 circles, you understand where the center is. But it doesn't mean that you have to go to the center. And that's how I think a scriptwriter, director thinks. He thinks about creating the world special, but not just telling the story. I understand very well that some people were disappointed seeing my film because they wanted to see Michelangelo doing sculpture. They already imagined, usually the audience, if you say, I want to make a film about Tchaikovsky. What is the film? Tchaikovsky writes music. Michelangelo. What is the film? Michelangelo makes sculptures. Leo Tolstoy writes novels. And that's very boring. Because
sorry, please continue. That's your point. Sorry.
So that's what the most difficult thing for me to write a script about Michelangelo, avoid him doing sculptures.
Well, it's so interesting. It might be me drawing the parallel, but this is another film that you were obviously involved with, which was Andrei Rublev, the great icon painter. And it was a very similar approach. And again, stop me if I'm wrong, because you don't see him creating the work, and you sort of see everything else, like all the things going on around him, the sort of spiritual crisis, right, happening within him, and then only towards the end you only see the work, in close up. Very rarely do you see him working. And I know you were involved in that film. Did that ever, enter your mind? Was there any sort of thinking about that, or any other kind of dialogue with other work that you've done?
It's interesting that you mentioned it, but I can tell you frankly, when I was writing the script, I never thought about Andrei Rublev. When I finished the script, read it, I said, my goodness, this is the sequel.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. That's so interesting.
It's the same thing. It's a kind of platonic infatuation with the female. It's different problems with the power people, different problems, moral problems, whatever, but never creation. And I realized it when I finished the script.
Yeah.
That means it's only one thing, that in my psychic, the idea to avoid going to the center of the city.
Yeah, you know, it was really interesting. You live in Italy, correct? That's your, is
No,
that your home?
I live in Russia, but
Ah,
quite often,
okay.
no, quite often we go to Tuscany because we have a house
Right,
here.
right,
And,
right.
and
So I'm in Tuscany, and I watched your film. I was sent the
I see the
screener.
shooting. I see
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that this is Los Angeles.
No, 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 no. It's not a Brooklyn ceiling. But I after watching your film, the next day we went to, I don't know if you know the art supply store Zecchi in Firenze in Florence. My wife is a painter. Zecchi, it's their famous like old art supply store. And then from Zecchi we went to the Duomo, and we were walking around Florence. We went inside the Duomo, and it was after watching your film, so it was so interesting the perspective of it. And it was really striking to me when watching it. You know, it seems like there's a very conscious decision made not to. Whenever people talk about Michelangelo and you know that golden age, the Renaissance, it's there's such a, even walking around it now, there's such a tendency to idealize it, right? This sort of, oh, when people were sort of, you know, speaking with the gods, and, you know, this sort of like, oh, what an age, what a beautiful age. And you make it sort of a conscious decision, like, you're not gonna idealize it. There's literally people who are like throwing, you know, feces out the window, right? You know, and multiple scenes. Like, it seems like a very conscious approach to not idealize him, not idealize the time. And also, I guess because it wasn't like a symphony of great artists just like speaking with one another and inspiring one another. He was like, there was a lot happening. There was a lot of, you know, bad happening as well. So
I mean, everyone lives through certain problems in their lives. Uh, the question is here, because Michelangelo is such a well-known, great figure of world art and European art and Italian art and Florence art, he's kind of a top epitome of a great artist. Uh, that kind of oblige many people to create kind of to concoct the conditions under which he worked, and that's
mm-hmm.
not true. First of all, and I think it's very interesting, not regarding only Michelangelo. You talk about Caravaggio, you talk about Benvenuto Cellini or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
or, or Cervantes, for
Yeah.
example, or Shakespeare. I mean, all of them, people who created the highest level of human achievement in expressing the force of spirit, the force of beauty,
Mm.
notwithstanding the reality around them.
Mm.
The whole that's the point. Life was quite tough in von Shakespeare as well, but it doesn't mean that he couldn't create that great pieces of art, or
Mm.
Cervantes under such a extraordinary pressure of Inquisition, write Don Quixote. That only proves that freedom of expression, so idealized by today,
Yeah.
but you doesn't give you a guarantee for a masterpiece.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, well, that's the other thing I was thinking. I mean, do you think it's like a requisite? I know like Khalil Gibran says that pain sort of digs a well within you that you can then fill up. And
Yeah,
the
that,
deeper the well goes, the more you can fill it up
so
with beauty.
that create a force of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
But Michelangelo, as I studied his life, was quite a difficult person.
Yeah.
He was paranoid. He was rude. He was sentimental and unbearable. He could have been very cruel. He could be. He's a wonderful very rich character with a lot of shortcomings. And that is so touching because, you know, we all have our own shortcomings. And he was...
Except for myself. I have no shortcomings. Just to be clear.
Maybe that's for me was very touching that he is quite susceptible to human feelings, and at the same time he completely could forget everything and be very, very rude, and I would say even intolerant. And for me, these shortcomings were so nice, so good. I loved him for the whole, for the faults, for the qualities, but for the any fault. And on the same time, of course, he was so passionate with marble. And when I decided to put him for 1/3 of the film, more into the quarry in Carrara, I thought that kind of acquaintance with populace, with the folks, with Carrarese, and their kind of three characters in the film: Michelangelo, Carrarese, folks, people, nation, and Marvel.
Yeah.
These three characters. And this is a kind of equation between these three characters created a film for me.
What was your sources? Because there's not that much. I mean, we know so much about his life, but so much of it is sort of open-ended, right? So what were your sources, and how close to those sources did you follow it? How much artistic license did you take?
Let me tell you about Michelangelo. There are 100 times more material than about Andrei Rublev.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So in Andrei Rublev, when we were working with Tarkovsky, we were more free because there are few documents.
Exactly.
But about Michelangelo, there are hundreds of documents. I'm talking about bills. I'm talking about I'm talking. There was several studies. One of the books by English author was the book called Michelangelo Wealth. It's all, he studied all checks, every money document was in that book. So when he received some money from Vatican, he had to spend it to that, and then I realized that he got money from Vatican for marble, and he, instead of buying marble, he bought a property. And not only one. So in that sense, it was all in film. And I found it so charming, when it's not proper word. I found it so strong to talk about his shortcomings, about his greed, about his, when he lies to someone. It's wonderful because we're all the same. But the difference is all the same in our faults and not all the same in our values and quality. He was a bloody genius. And that's made for me very close as a character. I love him as he is. And I wanted, basically, my goal was if the person who comes to the film, to the cinema and watch the film or watch the film at home, he realized after the film that he knows this guy quite well. And this guy sometimes is a pain in the neck. And sometimes he is obnoxious. Sometimes he's rude. And then, notwithstanding with all that, you like him. Because he is very pure person. And I think this is more important than to show his sculptures, because if you like the person, then you watch the sculpture, and then you understand that this sculpture is made by a person you know quite well.
What is that? How do you think for yourself? I mean, do you feel like and this might just be a rhetorical question, you don't have to answer, but what do people should know about you, and when coming to your work? Do you think that's important? Do people know about you as a film director when they come to your films?
No, I usually
like let's get your credit card statements and let's see what they let's go line by line by your purchases and see what they
No, the question is, I think that the regular the audience, I'm not talking about cinephile, I'm not talking about someone who really knows and who is a fanatic on film, and maybe he knows Kurosawa and maybe my name. No, it's not important. Important for the audience, for the spectator who comes and see the film, he should be completely blunt, nothing. He should be like a white piece of paper. He watches the film. He comes out, then he says, "What the hell I've seen?" And then he thinks, "Oh, it's interesting how they lived." And then he can say to someone, "Listen, I've seen the film. Oh, it's very interesting. What is it about? I cannot explain you. It's about the guy who's being murdered. But it's interesting to watch." In that sense, it's not easy film. It's not easy. It's not so easy to watch this film without understanding what the author would like to say. It's more like a quite thick novel, like Thomas Mann or someone. It's like kind of boring because nothing happens. Not nothing, but still not much things happen, except his conflict with the powers. It's much more easy. It's easier to make entertainment. Because when you entertain people and they watch the film and they are really exalted and they are involved, and then they come out and say, "Oh, it was great," like roller coaster, and they say, "Great, let's have some sushi." Yeah, but usually it's that, because after entertainment, you don't have to think.
Yeah.
So when do you have to think? You have to think if you've seen something that touch your soul, touch your basis, touch your kind of deep, something deep in yourself, and if you was emotionally not involved too much, but you're watching with interest, you then have to think. And I think it's very important for certain people because, films itself, don't exist like film itself, like literature exists as a penguin, like porno, like Leo Tolstoy, like like some detective story. So it's all literature. It's all literature, including some kind of quite cheap novels, etc. In that sense, this is the same. It's like a novel. I appreciate those who decided to sacrifice 2 hours, 20 minutes to see this piece and not walk out and say, I cannot watch it anymore, it's very boring. And I will never tell him, "Oh, you're a stupid schmuck." No, is it boring? Of course, he has rights to leave. But those who stay, this for them.
Hmm.
And I am lucky enough to make this film without thinking about profit, without thinking that this money, big
Hmm.
money, by the
Hmm.
way, that were given by Alisher Usmanov, kind of
Mm-hmm.
mecenas, not a producer, not investor. He didn't invest money to get them back with profit. He just gave it because he was curious enough with me to try to do something that is interesting to see and discover something about life. So in that sense, I really appreciate those who stay to the end and those who are silent after the film is over and walk on the street several minutes just thinking. It's
Hmm.
quite important for people to contemplate. For every human being, contemplation is part of spiritual work.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. That's a great point. Well, I guess the question is, we talked about how you didn't sort of idealize the times that he was living in, and how much that plays into the work. Obviously, we're living, me and you are now on Zoom as opposed to in person. By the way, I said we should just get a cup of coffee if you're in Italy. We could have just done it, here, right? A cup of coffee. We didn't have to do all this Zoom nonsense, but obviously we're on Zoom for a reason, because the current events. So in some ways we're living through a bit of a dark time ourselves at the moment. Do you feel like that gives an opening to maybe, I don't even know if it's an opening, or is it kind of like a call to creators, to artists, filmmakers, to maybe, match the darkness of the times that we're living in with the beauty that they can create?
I don't know. I mean, of course, we can describe it as a dark time. For me, the descent into the certain darkness is not a time. It's not a pandemic or lockdown. It's not the most. It's not the most, for me, important. What is important is for human being, for humanity, that there is abundance of everything, and particularly of information, and half of this information, or even more, is fake. And we are under such abundance of images, news, words, sensations, glamour. We don't have time. Human being becomes absolutely overwhelmed by things he has to digest that are not necessary to digest because it's all rubbish. And but he doesn't have any time. 100 years ago, in 1920s, people had time to sit on the shore and read the thick novel. End of 19th century, this kind of novels were quite popular, and people sit and read for hours. Today, human brain is able to digest 5 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of reading. Every material you have in internet is reading 7 minutes. Reading 14 minutes. If someone writes something, reading 3 hours, no one's going to read it.
They should do that at the beginning of War and Peace.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. that means it's civilization really put an enormous pressure on human brain and creates this kind of world perception, especially young generation, selfie culture, selfie kind of curse, and at the same time smileys, and all these little pictures. And for me, I think this is very, very, very dangerous because people start to watch more than read. And reading is quite a work for a brain. Reading the special neuro-linguistic connections. For me, that is more dangerous than the moment of self-isolation. Of course, we can, I mean, this is a part of the picture, but I'm sure that we will overcome it. And even if government use it to put people down, yes, it's all a new age. But if we come out of this, I wonder how we will come out of our slavery to this abundance of information, and everyone is watching his iPhone. And that's, I think, is more dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of keep going forever. There's a lot of questions I want to ask you, but we got the cord cutting time. I guess thank you so much for the time. And if you want to get a cup of coffee, you just let me know. I'm happy to continue this conversation.
It's too late to have a coffee today. But, you know, what I really intended to do, because, you know, directors shouldn't speak before the film because the audience haven't seen it.
Yeah.
He shouldn't either speak after the film because audience haven't seen it. What the director should say. The theater as art has a fluctuation. You can change the play as a director after 10 performances. But you cannot change anything when you finish the film. And I mean, that's it. Charlie Chaplin and Woody Allen had a luxury to recut the movie. I don't want to recut anything in film, in my film Sin, or This Sin, or Peccato. I wanted, because I have a chance to explain, I wanted to make a film about a genius who was never satisfied with whatever he has done, including at the end of his life, he realized that he never approached the highest levels of spiritual life. And that's why I called the film The Sin.
That's a great place to leave it off. I'm guessing you don't have like an Instagram handle or anything to leave us with for the audience to follow you on Twitter or anything. But thank you so much. It was, again, I can continue forever. There's a lot I want to ask you, but thank you for the film, and thank you for taking the time.